Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Awakening Beauty conversation. Today, I am super excited to have one of my dear friends, Tyler, with me. Welcome, Tyler.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah, as usual, this will be a deep, cozy, I hope meaningful conversation. So, because we will go deep, I would like to first invite you to grab one of your favorite drinks, tea or coffee, or whatever is going to make you feel happy before you join our conversation. Wow. We will see what will unfold out of this conversation, given that we have some beautiful memories and years of exchanges behind the scenes with Tyler. I'm super excited. So maybe I can start with a brief introduction from my side, Tyler, before handing it over to you. So just before joining call, actually, we were talking about our history and background. It's going to be almost like 5 years. I think it should be a cold winter day, 2019, when we met in one of the product meetings in our previous company, Elsevier. So we met as colleagues with Tyler. We were a part of the same product team. And I still remember the first conversation we had. We bonded over a kombucha. It was something small but so meaningful for revealing our common interest around health and healing. And not so sure, Tyler, you will remember this, but then the same day in the afternoon, during the social activity part of the bonding, you beat me at bowling. I still remember that.
I do.
But yeah,
I
but
may
you
have
were
won, but
so
I hurt my elbow, so you might have been the real winner.
no, not really. And you were like you're doing right now. You were so humble and so kind in your approach that it never felt like a bitter competition. And that was the start of our friendship at first as colleagues. Then even after we left Elsevier, we stayed in touch since we still share so many common interests and passion for healing our world or beautifying our world in our own ways. And it's quite challenging to put people into boxes and define them in general, but Tyler is even more complicated. He's truly a holistic healer. He is an herbalist. He is a land steward. He is a lifestyle coach. He is actually a medicine man, wisdom keeper. He's a great conversationalist. He's a great artist in his own way. So holistically, I think he is carrying so much talents in him to bring more healing into the personal space, but also into our planet. I will give him a little bit more voice to bring his story in his own words. So, Tyler, can you please share a little bit more about your story in your own words? Like, how did you get into healing and how it's unfolding for you in its current expression out in the world?
Sure. And yeah, I just want to say it's an honor to be here, and I love the Awakening Beauty project and everything that you're embodying here, and so grateful for sharing the time together.
Thank you.
So, my story, where to start? I guess I'll start very young. when I
Yeah,
was
let's please.
when
I
I
love
was
your
3 years
childhood stories.
old. Yeah. So when I was a child, I was 3 years old, and my father was, I don't, he must have been diagnosed before then, but when I was three, he passed away from cancer. And in the later stages of his illness, my mom was really trying to support him holistically. So they had gone out and bought all these books, and I don't know where they got all their information, but they were working on macrobiotic diets and taking salt baths and all different types of things that would help nourish the body in a holistic way,
Hmm.
complementary to the chemo and radiation and other therapies that he was receiving. So he passed away when I was three. And yeah, that kind of hung over my head a lot of my life, I would say, because throughout school and whatnot, as I learned more about healthcare, I was always taught about risk factors, and they always feed into me, oh, if your family members or your parents died of something, you're very likely to die of that too. So I kind of lived my whole
Yeah.
life thinking I might not make it past 30 because,
Oh, really? This is new
yeah,
to me.
yeah. So, because he was about 30 when he passed away. So,
Ah,
yeah. And when I was growing up, a lot of my other family members, my aunts, uncles, cousins, step siblings, all different levels of the generational hierarchy were dropping like flies left and right. So
yeah.
I was always going to funerals as a child and have a weird relationship with death as a result, I would say. But I did have this complex of, wow, it's going to be lucky if I make it to 30 and I should be careful in some ways, but also uncareful in others. So I really tried to live a full life very young. And yeah, found a good balance of nourishing myself holistically, but
Yeah.
also living kind of a wild life to just in case it might be a short one. So,
Yes.
yeah,
Wow, so much wisdom there. And it's interesting that I'm still learning something new about your story, too. I guess I never asked this question in this way. I know the story about your father, but I didn't know that you had this internal fear that was also triggering you to be more passionately healthy in a different way. You touched upon very interesting things before jumping into other points of discussion. The wisdom in what you shared is also quite important to highlight. And synchronistically, this was something that I personally reflected in my personal life a couple days ago. Like, we live life as if we are never gonna die, but it's always a sweet balance of knowing that at one point we will die, or knowing that we will live for a long time. Like, it's a sweet dance of living as if you're not gonna die versus this might be your last day. And I think this is a beautiful invitation for us to think about every day as an opportunity to really keep that sweet balance. Like, did I live my today in a meaningful way that's going to make me feel content if I know that tomorrow might not happen for me? Or did I also make an investment for the future, knowing that I might live long because we never know? So, so much sweet wisdom in what you shared. And very interestingly, you and I are both coming from formal healthcare backgrounds and lots of immersion in the Western medicine. And what you shared about this heritage issue and how it's really impacting us deeply impacted me when I was a child as well. Like, all of my ancestors, we lost them to cancer too. So when I was growing up, I also had the same kind of fear, knowing that I have this thing inherited in me was really always clouding my own judgments. And at some instances, I don't really feel like I was trusting the inner wisdom of my body out of that fear in some shape or form. Nowadays, now that I am more into holistic healing, which is another common interest we share, I personally feel that there are so many things that we can change through us healing our own genetic too. So it's a little bit like a chicken and an egg kind of thing. Yes, we transfer so many things from our ancestral roots, but we can also, through the way that we live life, have the empowerment to change many of the things. And I think that part of the healthcare journey is very much neglected in the Western medicine. And I think that's one of the strengths that holistic healers like you and like us talking about these things can also complement the formal treatments that we receive through the change of biology. It's half biological, but also half lifestyle, and half of the work is literally our belief systems and the energy that we bring into the healing spaces. Thank you for reminding that as well.
yes, thank you. Very well said.
So, when I was checking your recent website, which is a beautiful invitation for others to learn more about you and your services too, Reviving Wisdom, it made me wonder, why reviving wisdom? There is so much things that can be unfolded from that little small summary. Can you share why you picked that particular essence?
Sure. And I think you hit the nail on the head. It's there's a simple phrase that can carry a lot. And Yeah, so I would say I chose that name because when thinking about all the different things that I do, because I have a lot of professions.
And can you
Um,
share a little bit more about that too? I maybe edit a couple sprinkles around, but
sure. Yeah, so today I would say I spend about half my time in herbal medicine, holistic healing for people, and the other half in, I guess, also kind of herbal medicine and holistic healing for the earth. So trying to really work really hard in my community to make sure that people have access to healthcare that has been proven over thousands, if not millions of years of human evolution,
yeah.
and do the same for the planet to regenerate degraded ecosystems in my region and teach as many classes on both of these realms as possible to empower people to do the same work. So that's a very broad overview, but within
Yeah.
that, there's a lot of little microservices and projects. So yeah, it's a very broad thing. And over the years, I've made kind of mini websites and social media followings and things that are catered to one of those little niches, but it's a lot of work to manage them at scale. So I
Yeah.
wanted to find one brand that kind of encompassed everything and held true to what my true core was. So when looking for a name, I really thought about what is my favorite thing in life and in the world and what lights me up. And it's always wisdom.
Yes.
And I love to talk about what wisdom means to me and the difference between wisdom and information.
Yes, please. Coming from knowledge and information space, and in today's world, it's very meaningful. I would like to invite you to share the difference, please.
Yes. So the way I see it, information is data. Um, Data can be misguided. It can be biased. It can also be correct, but data doesn't often tell a holistic picture of all the perspectives and truths that are there. And data is also not always actionable in a helpful way. So, in the age of information that we live in, with a lot of people have access to even millions of scientific articles and books and all these podcasts and um, subject matter experts and influencers and TV shows and the media and the news.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
just so much information
yeah,
everywhere at all times, and there's something really cool about that.
yeah.
But there's also something overwhelming about that. So even before that era, I would say I was always addicted to wisdom and old people. I will
I
say,
know. I think you have a very old soul. Let's acknowledge that.
yeah. So elders that are around, whenever there was an elder that they didn't always say something wise, but when they said
Yeah,
something that was wise, my ears would perk up, and I would really soak that in and
yeah.
be a mirror for that and tell all my friends and family about that. And my mom has journal entries from when I was a very young child, just spewing
Wisdom.
really deep wisdom. And I think in her journal, she was like, "Where is he getting this from?" It's like she had no idea. And I couldn't say for sure, but my guess is I was soaking it in from the different realms and from the elders in my community. Um, so yeah, I've been addicted to wisdom. Wisdom for me cuts through the noise and is something that is a living, breathing thing that can be
Yeah,
passed on intergenerationally. And that's really where the magic happens, is understanding what is important information and what is an important culture and reaction to the world around us and how we can embody that. So that's for me, I guess, what wisdom carries as a medicine. And it's the most valuable thing, I think, as a human with our big brains that we can
yeah,
process and carry and share and evolve. So I think I chose the name Reviving Wisdom because there's so much wisdom out there. And as we become disconnected from our elders and disconnected from wisdom traditions that have been passed through humanity in every single culture in the world for millennia,
yeah.
we're losing that wisdom and it's dying out in a lot of cases. So reviving that wisdom is a big goal of mine and making sure that it lives and carries on to the next generations. as is reviving everything through that wisdom. So reviving ourselves, our culture, our health, reviving the planet, reviving the ecosystems around here, and biodiversity. So it's kind of a two-sided meaning to reviving wisdom.
That is so beautiful. Now I have even more respect. Oh, well, you beautifully articulated what wisdom means for you. I'm in full alignment, and maybe you already also mentioned embodiment, but that's the highlight that I would like to maybe emphasize even more. In today's world, I see so much knowledge all around, and it's always in the mind space. And to me, wisdom is also a lived, embodied experience in the body, bringing all our human faculties together. And we are also missing that very much in today's world. Like we are all up in the air in our minds. And yes, we know how to say popular quotes and lots of information coming in and out, but we're not taking it into the body, being the knowledge, embodying the knowledge, which to me is the real essence of wisdom. And knowing you, knowing your presence, I can definitely say that you are also a beautiful embodiment of the wisdom.
And I love that you
And
brought the body into the conversation because
yeah,
that's a whole nother aspect of
yes,
wisdom.
please take it from there if you have things to add. I'm sure you
Yeah.
have.
Well, just the innate wisdom in our bodies. Like we
Yes,
all carry wisdom in
yes,
our DNA. Like we know that it's packaged. Science is catching up slowly
yes,
but surely to through epigenetics and other fields. But
yeah.
it's been really cool. One of my teachers calls this the age of reencounter,
I
and I
like
think
that.
yeah. So we're re-encountering ourselves as well. And I think listening to my body and all the different somatic practices that are emerging it's really cool. It's telling us about our food system and issues. It's telling us about medicine and how it works. We're connecting with our intuition and our other
Yes,
knowledge centers that are not the brain, our heart, our gut.
yes, yes,
And I love that innate wisdom that we each carry within ourselves.
yes. Well, I am a fan of words. Words to me is a beautiful invitation on a bridge between seen and the unseen. um, and I really like understanding the etymology, that background, and the roots of the. Is everything all right? Are we good?
I'm double fisting teas over here. One is too hot.
Fair enough. The magician of the teas. This year, what is unfolding in me, and I know thematically in some of the communities that I'm a member of as well, this remember word is coming up. And it's so beautiful. It has this inner essence of us already knowing what we need to know, us being the embodiment of the wisdom innately in us. It's only remembering what we forget. It's such a beautiful reminder. And I like also the revival part of the wisdom. It's reviving wisdom has the same level of essence. It's not something new. It's us bringing life back to the wisdom that's innately in us, like revival, to live again, to bring back to life again. So beautiful. It's coming with this inner essence of something innately being there, and us like sculpturists, like just getting rid of the parts that doesn't belong to us anymore, which is a different way of seeing the world, which is a different way of creating the world too. And I think that's another thing that I very much appreciate about the way that you see life and approach life, including business too. I think in today's world, we are approaching everything from a point of lacking, and this type of reframing, revival, remembering, acknowledging the innate wisdom is a different way of seeing the world. It's coming from abundance, it's coming from an already existing appreciation and sacredness of life, of humanity. And thank you for carefully selecting the words. And definitely, I can see how you are the embodiment of the wisdom that you will be bringing back to life. Beautiful. And another thing, knowing you, that you do very well, Tyler, is really this balance of old and the new. When we met, we were in the advanced clinical decision support of Elsevier, dealing with machine learning, artificial intelligence, the future of treatment in the Western medicine, cutting edge technology. But at the same time, behind the scenes, we were having these conversations about ancient wisdom, ancient cultures, and our connection to earth, our connection to nature. And in my world, I don't have too many really truly holistic healers who can carry both at the same time with equal depth and equal reverence. Like I see quite a lot of friends of mine who are coming from a more ancient wisdom background, but they're not into technology, they're not into modern medicine in that sense. But also the ones who are into technology, modern Western world, they're not honoring the traditions of the old cultures. And I see you literally having one feet on one side, one feet on the other, and extracting the real essence of what needs to be revived from the old while also bringing newness and freshness with the modern world. Can you share a little bit more about how are you doing this sweet dance of balance? Because this is also one of your gifts and one of the offerings that you extend as one of your services. Like how do you bridge those two worlds? What do they mean for you?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great topic. Thank you. A couple, I guess, roads into that question. One would be just some memories that are coming to mind for me throughout my life. The head of my chair of biology at Drexel University, um, she would say, the better the scientist, the better the researcher, the more spiritual she finds them to be.
Yes.
And yeah, so having that in my freshman year of college, which was I had taken a lot of even college level biology classes before then, but having in that rigorous Western research setting, the person who is the head honcho, the head of the department,
Yep.
and one of the most celebrated professors there, give us permission to be a really nerdy scientist, but also make space for spirit. And that was just, I think, hugely impactful for me as a
Yes.
young scientist. And
Yes.
I'm forever grateful for that invitation. And honestly, it might have been like through this same individual that a lot of these other memories too. I can't remember for sure, but another thing that happened in college was I learned about drug development. So how are medications discovered, engineered, created, like where to even begin there, from which molecules to go after and matching them with potential health outcomes. And I learned, the stat has probably changed now, but back then, the majority of drugs that were on the market were actually derived from plants. And that set me down a little path as well of looking into the research and figuring out like what were people studying to even like find and develop these drugs. And it was typically someone who went into a community where there was folk plant medicine or traditional healing happening and studying with a healer who was using plants to heal different ailments, and then saying, oh, okay, well, this, say, I'm trying to think of a good example. This calamus root is used in treating cancer. Let's look at this plant and see what is inside the root, and then run a bunch of tests on each of those individual chemicals and see if anything helps improve survival rates for mice with cancer.
Yeah.
So even the Western world, a lot of like Western medicine that we have is thanks to traditional wisdom
True.
and these relationships that we've had with these plants and the ecosystems around us for all of human evolution.
Thank you for grounding us back to this original wisdom of the plants once again and revealing the real story about the drug development history. Coming from the same background, it deeply resonates with me too. And the first story you shared is a very important one. How we get inspired by the embodiment of some of the leaders in the spaces that we belong. Just a couple days ago, I was having another conversation with another friend, and our conversation will be released hopefully prior to this one. So the ones who will be listening will be already familiar with the concept. We were talking about education. Education, in essence, meaning bringing something out, coming back to our conversation, acknowledging that each individual is innately talented, beautiful, and the role of the teacher is to bring that inner essence out. And lots of the psychological frameworks looking into successful teachers, they reveal the fact that the ones that are able to bring this inner essence out in the students are the ones who are authentic. And they are the ones being the embodiment of the change that they would like to see in the children. And by them being that embodiment of truly embodying all of themselves, in this case, science and spirituality together, they invite other students who feel the same essence to bring more of that out to the world. It was such a beautiful reminder, once again, I think, to all of the people, and especially the ones who are leading others, who are more on the front sides of education, to be boldly themselves, because that's the real way of us leading change by little, without sometimes not even knowing, impacting each other. Such a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah. And I think we already exchanged historically quite a lot of ideas about this. Us not remembering the real wisdom of the plants doesn't necessarily change anything about their benefits and the value. And I think in today's world, one of the things that I would like to see more is a lot more scientific research tailored towards plants and bringing their wisdom back to our lives again. Because on the personal side, now that I've been experimenting with herbal medicine as a complementary, given my background in Turkey, which is also well known by its herbal complementary treatments, plus for years operating in the Western world, I very much honor and appreciate the subtle but gentle benefits of the herbs that can create so much value in our daily lives. And we just simply forget that. And because we are not taking care of our bodies holistically before things are broken down, then we are prone to this more intense treatments that comes in the form of quite a lot of intense Western medical treatments and medicine. Maybe from that angle, because you shared quite a lot of wisdom with me at the time and helped me integrate lots of herbs into my life, including these little ones that I am sipping right now. For a novice listener who's not very well into the world of herbal medicine or plants, what are some gentle ways people can integrate more of the herbal wisdom before things get out of control in their health? Like, what would your suggestion be for people who are not sick yet, but who can get benefit from the wisdom of herbal medicine?
Sure. Yeah, it's a great topic. One of my favorites. So I like to say that in healthcare, there's probably more than two, but for conversation's sake, there's two approaches. One is treating illness, and
Yeah.
the other is nourishing health.
Yes.
And those are very different approaches. Western medicine tends to treat symptoms and at most, and then
If it can,
also, yeah,
then it can.
yeah. Symptoms are like the biggest priority in
Yes.
triaging in patients and choosing a intervention, and then treating illness would be the second thing. Um, they've been trying to nourish health here and there with like patient education and different projects even we worked on together at Elsevier.
Yeah.
There's lots of tools out there, but it hasn't really hit the mark for some reason. Um, so empowering people to manage their own health, I think, is a big passion of mine. And the way to accomplish that is through nourishing health and not necessarily treating illness, because treating illness and symptoms and things like that, I do actually believe should be done by a professional in a lot of cases, because
Yes.
and I'll bring this all into herbalism, for instance. So there's often a conception that, oh, herbalism is something that everyone can do themselves and just go get your own herbs, treat yourself. But I would ask the question, if you needed a surgery, would you do the same thing? Um, and even within herbalism, there's those two paths. One is nourishing health, and one
Yep.
is treating illness. And when we're treating illness, actually, a lot of the herbs that are employed are actually controlled poisons. So they may treat the illness and be really good at that. But at the same time, they're going to be taking away from other aspects of health. And they're not meant to be taken long term. They need to be formulated the right dosage and prepared in the right way. They need to be personalized to the individual to make sure they're not causing other imbalances that will cause other issues. So even within herbalism, sometimes we're dealing with controlled poisons that treat
Yep.
illness and symptoms, and sometimes that's super necessary if somebody is actively sick.
Yep.
But whenever possible, preventative medicine is the best. I think every doctor in the world would agree with that as well. And nourishing health is the herbal version of preventative medicine. So there's these different class of herbs, and one is nourishing herbs and one is medicinal herbs. So the medicinal herbs tend to be, again, controlled poisons and have things like essential oils, which are volatile organic compounds, which can go bad very easily and actually become toxic. And there's things like alkaloids that can be tough on the liver and other body systems. So again, like medicinal herbs, work with an herbalist, a good one, because a lot of people are also calling themselves herbalists. No offense now, but you really want to dig into their background and understanding, because a self-taught herbalist that took a 2-week class is not going
Yeah.
to have the deep knowledge, the understanding to do no harm.
Yes.
And then there's nourishing herbs, which are herbs that are more like spinach and things that don't have anything that's super smelly, like no aromatic oils in them, and no alkaloids that are going to be detrimental to the liver. So
Got it.
nourishing herbs are meant to be used for long term, and they cumulatively build health over time. And they're safe for just about everybody. I will say that even with nourishing herbs, though, you need a relationship with that herb and understanding of your body
Yeah.
and what you're working on to really make a good impact.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Where would you position my sweet nettle tea that you recommended me to use for my allergies, and I became a fan of them?
Yeah.
Is
So
it on the
nettle is,
nourishing side?
yes, my
Okay.
favorite nourishing herb.
Yeah, I
Um,
know. And they're working. So for the ones who are suffering from allergies, get some into the system. They're doing magic.
right. Stinging nettle leaf is
Yes.
one of the most nutrient dense plants in the world.
Yes.
If you steep them for 4 to 12 hours overnight, a cup is going to have more calcium than milk and
Yes.
a bunch of trace minerals and things. They heal the body, the adrenals, the kidneys, the endocrine system, the skin,
Yes.
hair, nails, so many benefits of nettle. And sometimes I do wonder if some of our health issues are, there's a lot of things that impact them, I will say, like family history
Yeah,
and
of course.
environmental things. But sometimes I wonder how much of our chronic epidemiological population level health issues are just a matter of missing herbs that humans have been interacting with for
Before,
most
right?
of human evolution and are very recently disappearing from our routines.
So true. And they are being displaced with other addictive substances more and more, more and more. So we are not putting the healthy ones and we are putting unhealthy ones. So there's definitely an imbalance somewhere. Somewhere something has happened and changed the balance. But I think among all the things that you highlighted, it's really important to see this clear paradigm and difference between treatment and nourishing health. And as someone who has been operating the same healthcare system quite a long time, even the insurance companies and the healthcare system and how it's constructed, it's not empowering and enabling the individual to proactively take care of themselves. Even in patient education, it's mostly done when it's required to be done, which is like after an operation, after things are done, and we're still not in the Western world in the realm of nourishing health and seeing health holistically, including the preventative side of the health. And again, healthcare or health really means wholeness. And I think even we are having quite a lot of challenges in terms of defining things and feeling what it means in the way that we operate. So, in that sense, I've always seen how we take care of ourselves as holistic individuals needs to be at the forefront of our definition of health. And if there are gaps, in this case, as we've seen in the Western medicine, I think this is a space holistic medicine can come in as an integration of all of life and getting the support from all of life so that we can finally feel whole and hopefully be less prone to immediate interventions that might be needed at some point in life. But again, when I looked into holistic healing spaces, almost there are different ratios, but I think it's 70 almost 75% of what we see in today's world could be maybe managed or treated if we proactively take care of our lives and maybe revise some of the wisdom of the living wisdom of the plants and herbs that are available and mostly affordable to all of us. That's the other thing. Like you don't have to pay for, yes, for high quality, but in some parts of the world, they are available in nature if you are lucky enough to have access to them. Like in Turkey, like up in the mountains, I'm able to collect some of my favorite teas myself, like sage. Still, if you have access to nature, most of this is available. And if you have that privilege, please use it for your benefit, for the health of our planet as well.
Yes, I love it. That's
Yeah.
for me, I think the most important thing because there's layers to all this, but our relationship with the earth and with the environment around us is
Yes.
key. And we have doctors prescribing forest bathing now. They have to like write a prescription for people to go outside and interact with nature. And like you said, no matter where you're living on the planet, there's if humans have lived there before, unless they're in some like research center in the North Pole, there are plants there, and those plants are in the same environment that you live in. So
Yes.
learning their names, learning how to interact with them, how to honorably, ethically, sustainably grow or harvest them,
Yes.
finding somebody nearby who does herb walks and knows and can show you around is key and crucial. So it's
I know.
another one of my favorite things to do is take people on walks. And
I
it's
know.
funny the disconnect because people are afraid of eating things that grow and that are free. Like they'll buy whatever from a grocery store. Like
Not knowing where they're coming from, right?
yeah, who knows what's in there, where it came from, what happened between when it was harvested and it got to the store. But seeing a plant outside, like in the land that we know has not been polluted and is healthy and we know to be non-toxic and things like that. There's a first. I love taking people's on their first kind of foraging trip because a lot of times they have that fear of like, oh no, I was told everything is poisonous and dangerous in
Yeah.
nature. But once they get past that and they start making relationship with the land and the plants around them, I think that alone, even without ingesting them, is super healing and has a
It
great impact.
is. It is. And thank you for reminding that. So, for the ones who are in Philadelphia, follow Tyler. And if you had the opportunity to attend one of his nature walks, like herbal explorations, please attend. I was privileged enough to have one in person experience. And I still remember it till today. Like, I learned many, many new things about the native plants, trees, and you revealed quite a lot of wisdom about some basic principles like ethical harvest. And I would like to maybe bring those memories back. And for the ones who are not familiar with some of these principles, can you share a little bit more about what ethical harvest means? And for the ones who are taking this journey themselves without a guided, experienced leader like you, like what are the things that we need to pay attention to build a basic relationship with the plants and maybe get in touch with them and harvest them in an ethical manner, honoring their existence?
Sure. Yeah. So I like to think of it again holistically. So we think
Yeah.
about the whole planet and what have humans done to the planet in the last couple hundred years, especially, but even thousands of years. Habitat loss is the biggest issue right now for biodiversity and for ecosystem health. And that's happening in every single place on this planet. And there's only been in the Earth's many billions of years of living in existence, there's only been 5 mass extinction events, or four. Oh gosh, I'm gonna forget now.
That's okay. Come back to the essence. All
Four,
is well.
yeah.
Somewhere around that
I'm up
hallmark.
my game today. Yeah, but we're living through either the fifth or the sixth. I can't remember, but neither way, at best, only six have happened on this planet, and this is the only time that humans have made that happen. So I think it's as a citizen of this planet, it's everybody's responsibility to think about that and how in their own daily life they can make changes so that life on Earth can exist. And I like to say life on Earth will exist with or without humans.
Without humans.
Yeah, honestly, the biggest question is if we're going to exist for the planet. So in thinking about that, because it's really cool, like especially over COVID, a lot of people got into foraging and connecting with their wild spaces, and I love that. We also have to think about what the impact is of humans who have not been interacting with, not harvesting from these wild spaces, all of a sudden being out there and taking.
Yeah.
And it's not enough that most of the planet is used for our cities and our agriculture. Like that's what's feeding us. Like those
Yeah.
wild spaces are the only places left that are feeding wildlife. So for me, it's really important to think about, is it ethical to be taking from these wild spaces when all the birds, the bugs, the bees, the mammals, every wild animal that's reliant on that and that's constantly starving and their populations are all declining, we're taking away more of their food and they barely have any. And what is that ethical? And my thought is usually no. So what I like to practice is I really try not to take from nature unless I know that that interaction is going to support more biodiversity. And that can be done through learning which plants are native to your region and which plants are not native. Oftentimes, not native plants are actually taking up space for supporting the local food web. And by harvesting those plants, we actually make more space for the native plants and for more biodiversity. So harvesting can actually be an act of land stewardship. And a lot of the non-native plants are actually super nutritious and medicinal for us. So we should definitely learn those. I'd say start with that.
Okay.
The other piece, but never plant one. Harvest them when they're there, but do not make more of them, of the non-native, what some people call invasive, aggressive species.
Yep.
The second half to that would be, I do think it's important for people to have a relationship with the native plants of the place that they live. But we have so much land that is lawn and mulched, barren, and not used space. So plant native plants there. The ones you want to eat, if you want to eat blueberries or you want to harvest golden seal or service berries or any of the native plants to your area, plant them and that's how you can basically know that you're making more of them. So I try to only harvest native plants if I have already made more of them, and then I harvest from that patch because again, I'm in a relationship with that patch. I really know about the health and that it's not depleting a wild population.
Got it. Thank you. Well, I understand different regions have different native plants, but can you share a couple more highlights and insights for the Philly region, knowing that it's one of your specialties?
Yeah. Um, so another concept is keystone species. So a plant
Hmm.
that is a keystone of an ecosystem and a pillar of the food web that is supporting a ton of life. And in Philly, service berries are a big one, I would say. They are a tree that a small, let's say, small tree, large shrub, I guess is their classification. And all over the region in the spring, Philly is known for all these white blooms on trees, and they
Yes.
tend to be the Bradford pear, which is native to Asia, smells like, in my opinion, dead fish. Um,
Okay.
Beautiful visually, but really not a pleasant smell. Very pungent aroma, and a weak tree as well. Like they're just constantly blowing over from the wind and things. They cause a lot of maintenance issues for landscaping crews. So that tree, that look of like a small tree that's covered in white flowers in the spring, if we had no more Bradford pears and we cut them all down and replaced every single one with a service berry, which is native to this area, has the same aesthetic, smells good, it doesn't smell like dying fish, um, and is resilient to climate change and wind and all these other pressures, we would have food forests everywhere. And service berries are gorgeous. They make these beautiful red, pinkish berries that are larger than a blueberry, but taste like a mix of a blueberry and an almond. Like that
Wow.
kind of,
Yummy.
yeah, the sweetness of an almond, that aromatic aspect. And they are a keystone species. So hundreds of different bugs use them to be able to reproduce. And the birds love the berries. It's an early nectar source for, again, pollinators, and an early food source for the migrating birds as they're returning through the area into their warmer month homes. So serviceberry, I would say, is one of the best. And there's like 7 or 8 species of them. So no matter where you live in the region, you can find one. And actually, like pretty much the whole continental US has their own version of them as well.
That's beautiful. I learned many new insights out of this simple question, but this also made me wonder, Tyler, if you could be any plant or tree, what would you be? And of course, why?
That's a difficult one.
I know it's like, which one is your favorite child?
Yeah, it'd probably be a tree, and probably a late successional tree, older tree of the oak variety. So
Oh, so much wisdom.
I don't know what it is. I've always had a connection with oak trees. I had a giant oak tree in my backyard growing up that was probably 200 or more years old, and spent a lot of time underneath her, sitting and meditating and just
Any
learning.
highlights or unexpected lessons or wisdom you gained through her?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Anything that you feel comfortable to bring into the space?
Trying to remember, it's. I think a lot of my ethos growing up was shaped by time spent with that tree. I remember. Okay, so reciprocity would be one of the biggest ones because we benefited from the shade of this tree. It's gorgeous, beautiful tree to look at every day. The rustling of the leaves was always very calming. The acorns falling down and watching all the squirrels and birds and things interact with them. And before we moved in, someone had, I guess, wrapped a rope around the tree, and it must have been there for a long time. And it was just part of the architecture. Like we're used to seeing the piece of rope there. And I remember one day I was probably like hugging the tree um, or something, and I just had this like feeling that the tree was like, "Get this rope off of me."
Oh,
And I was like, "Oh!" So then I started inspecting the rope, and it was really tight and was actually starting to girdle the tree. And I guess I had been there for like over a decade at that point, so the tree must have expanded in that time. Because when we first moved in, I remember it was more loose. So the tree asked me to remove the rope. I cut the rope off, and it felt like a big like sigh of relief. Like I felt like we breathed together. Like there was a big gust of wind that came in, and we both kind of took a deep breath. And
Oh,
um,
yes.
it was really cool to see, even underneath the bark, the impact the rope was having negatively on the health. Um, and it was a way of giving back, and that reciprocity of these are
Mm,
living, breathing beings,
yes.
and our actions can help them, and vice versa. So that kind of ethos
Mm,
of an animist view of the world was one of the
yes.
biggest, I think, gifts that that tree shared with me.
Wow. Such a beautiful story and such a beautiful reminder of the sacredness of life all around us. Interestingly, once again, synchronistically, I will refer back to my previous conversation. And in that conversation, too, we were sharing how we are talking with trees and how other people might see us as weirdos doing that. Here I am having another conversation about talking to the trees and getting their wisdom and integrating it into our lives. And in that conversation, this came within the context of our daily rituals. And it's not easy to hold the space for healing unless you take care of yourself as a healer too. And I remember we had deep long conversations about heal the healer concept, which is something that we all need. So creating more communal spaces is an important part of that, but also having your rituals and grounding yourself in your essence is an important part of a healer journey. And I know that you have very well protected rituals that give you the essence that you need. Would you be comfortable sharing a couple of the essences that you bring into your life so that you can hold this healing space in whatever shape or form you might need to hold for others?
Sure. Yeah. And I think, again, something I've learned from my teachers. Am I still connected?
Yeah, you are.
Okay, cool. I got a notification.
Yep.
Um, Something I learned from my teachers was to be a healer, you have to put yourself aside. And in holding space for another person, it's not about you. And it's, you got to try to not let your baggage and your things or your mood or whatever impact the other person, which is a complex topic
It
that we
is.
could probably spend all hours talking about. But
Maybe next time.
yeah,
That's a good conversation starter.
yeah, because I do think it's important to
It's
keep yourself
important. Yeah,
there
very
as
important.
well,
Yes.
but make space for the other person. And yeah, so I think in that realm, holding space for another, you're not focusing on yourself. So if you're a healer, if you're spending a lot of time officially or unofficially, even just supporting other people, it's important to make sure that you are also being supported. Um,
Yeah.
and that can happen in a lot of ways. Um, so before Elsevier, I was working at a startup called Intronet, and we were trying to accelerate the right people getting to know each other and being introduced to each other to make positive change happen in the world. And
Hmm.
we came across Adam Grant, who I know you are a fan of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Another Philly native.
yeah. So he was even at Penn back then as a professor, and it might have been his first book. It was called Give, Take, Match, I believe.
Oh, yes.
Have you read that
Yes.
one?
Another reciprocity thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
So the concept is there's that naturally everybody is kind of born with a personality that's either a giver, a taker, or a matcher. And givers tend to altruistically just give everything they have, and they have a hard time reeling it back. Takers tend to not give and to take. And one of the worst things in the world for a giver is to be surrounded by takers.
Takers.
So, um, but the best thing for a giver is a matcher because they're like the karma police. And if they surround themselves with matchers, the matchers will inherently make sure the reciprocity is there because it just irks them. It rubs them the
Yep.
wrong way for anybody to be taking more than they're giving.
Yep.
So that definitely was a wake up call for me, I think, at the time in the early 2010s. And I looked at my life and I'm like, okay, because I was a healer and I'm like, Yeah, I'm supporting a bunch of people, but who is
Who
supporting
is
me?
supporting me?
Yeah. So I want to bring that in because I want to talk about like myself supporting myself, but in
Yes,
general, I think it's really important for everybody to have a supportive community and
true.
to have relationships that are reciprocal and are not hemorrhaging energy and support and love
One-sided. Yep.
and
Yep.
resources and all of that. So there's that aspect. I think healers, if you're called to healing, you are likely on the giver side. If you're a true healer, I would say. And yeah, so find some matchers at least, or evaluate your takers and try to hold them accountable and rework those relationships would be my advice there. And yeah, on the other side, my self care is really paramount. So making sure that I have my reserves built up, that I'm in a good place physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and yeah, I have some rituals and processes to support that. So I do a lot of group ceremony work, and that can be super heavy, I would say. It's like supporting multiple people at the same time, working through sometimes their deepest, darkest issues of the moment. And I have a whole process leading up to those ceremonies where, for at least a week beforehand, I am pretty much the best version of myself. So I scale up my journaling, my meditation, my yoga, my exercise. I eat really clean and healthy. Um, I check in with myself often. I'm taking Epsom salt baths, um,
Mm.
trying to sing, laugh, dance at least once a day. Um, so really just embody the medicine and be in touch with myself, and like it's basically giving myself time to heal myself before I put myself aside to heal others.
Yep.
Um, and that's not to say like when I'm holding space for others, it's also super healing for me, and I their
Yes.
healing is part of my healing, and I learn a lot from that. But just making sure again that I have my time for healing, so that when it's my time to make space for other people healing, I feel good about that, and I've kind of did the work beforehand so I can step aside.
That's beautiful. Mm.
Yeah.
So yummy. Such a beautiful comprehensive routine. I love it. And I
Yeah.
assume you also get into long walks in nature too.
Oh yeah, that's a pretty much everyday thing.
Yeah, it's like it's my day.
Yeah,
It's not a routine. That's what I do for breathing.
yeah, super
uh,
necessary. I live in Philly in the city, and just everything going on all the time here. I need to live close to a little nature spot, even in the city,
yeah.
and I'm typically always somewhere along the Schuylkill River, no matter where I live, and able to go there and decompress and have my, I don't call it alone time because I'm with all my nature friends, but
Yeah. Yes.
my less human time, I would say.
Time. A beautiful way of framing it.
Yeah.
And yes, Philly is such a privileged place. Like you are at the center of the city, but so close to nature. That's one of the beautiful things about my Philly experiences as well. Well, we are approaching almost our first hour together. So, just to wrap things up, acknowledging that we are recording this in the beginning of a new year, just to inspire each other and hopefully invite more of the things that we would like to see more in our world. What are some of the intentions and wishes that you are carrying forward to this new year? Can we get some inspiration from your intentions?
Well, I don't know about that, but I'll share what I know.
Bring it
Um,
on.
yeah, this year I'm big on teamwork and community engagement this year, which I feel like I am every year, but I think since COVID, things have kind of, the deck has been shuffled
Yep.
card wise, and I think people were trying, like a lot of new communities were popping up everywhere and little groups to work on things together, and they were kind of like very quickly popping up and then dissipating and popping up and dissipating. And um, this year, it seems like just as a whole in my community, people are finally coming back around and ready to band together with common goals and interests. So, yeah, one of my biggest goals is, like we were talking about with the service berry, to have as many community spaces that are being underutilized ecologically, and that includes human ecological value as well, be converted, and adding more native plants there that are medicinal, edible for humans, but also super valuable to wildlife. And to bring the community along for that journey, to be invested in the long-term evolution and stewardship and care of that space as well. So
Wow.
hoping anybody out there who has even a small little container in front of your house, hit me up and I can help you find the right plant for that space and care routine and all of that. And especially larger parks and things like that. There's so many in Philly, and I almost never see. I'm seeing more native plants there as certain grants for clean water for stormwater runoff are coming in,
Yep.
but we're still missing that piece of human interaction. And that's to say, some of the places it is like contaminated soil, but a lot of them are not. And we can always test and make sure it's safe before we get into that. So yeah, hoping to get teams together. I'm trying to form, like for my retreats and things, more medicine teams, and even for my business. I just need more support to be able to scale any larger. So
Yeah.
hoping to find folks interested in these things, teaching a lot of classes to get people up to speed, because like I said, I have a lot of these acts of service and businesses
Yes.
established, but I have a hard time finding folks who know enough about ecological restoration and the local ecosystems to engage. So I've been working really hard on generalized programs because,
Yeah.
as we talked about, like there's a lot of information specific to here, but the wisdom pieces tend to carry across geographies and climates and things. So working, yeah, on a lot of creative projects, a couple books and online courses that should
Yes.
help, yeah, empower people to make this change and to follow a lot of the path that I was blessed enough to be put on and supported by many awesome mentors. So I want to share that wisdom with the world and empower other people to do the same.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I'm so glad that I asked. Beautiful intentions and beautiful imitations. I'll be definitely linking your website and the details. So for the ones who receive the call, please reach out to him. And especially if you're local, there are lots of opportunities for collaboration and coordination. Wow, Tyler, I will thank you once again for truly, first of all, being the embodiment of the wisdom that you would like to revive in the world. It's truly an honor to get to know you as a human being. You are a talented healer, a holistic healer, bridging old and the new together and doing it respectfully, doing it in your own ways and inspiring me too. So thank you for being you. Thank you for doing the work for planetary and personal healing. Well, before we formally wrap things up, is there anything else that you would like to highlight from our conversation or bring into the space? Any final words or reflections on your side too?
Yes, I want to say thank you so much, Daruk, for putting this together. This is my first podcast, I'm pretty sure. I
Yes.
don't know if you even consider it a podcast. It's like a talk show that,
Conversation.
yeah, conversation that ends up in lots
It's
of
a
different.
conversation dancing together. We are dancing together. That's what I say. Conversation is dancing together. And behind the scenes, by the way, I always wanted to hear Tyler's wisdom more out in the world. So I was actually like bugging him, like, hey, you need to do more videos. And I realized that unless I invite him to do one with me, he's not going to do it.
Yes. Thank you for the push or the pull out of the nest.
May this
Definitely.
be the first one and maybe hear your voice and wisdom more, Tyler.
Thank you. Yes. And yeah, I just love everything you're doing with this project. It's Drew spends so much time and energy on finding folks who have a message that she thinks should be amplified to be shared. And and she's not getting paid for it. So I don't know if you have a Patreon or anything, or Venmo. You can maybe link that in your description as well. But yeah,
Hmm.
super heart-driven project that you have here, and very honored to be a guest and part of it. And I hope as well that this is amplified and continues to make its way through the ethers, and anybody who has a story to tell or wisdom to share, reach out to Daruk and see if there's a good fit for a conversation.
Thank you so much for the invitation, you extended on behalf of me. I really appreciate it. Well, it has been an honor and pleasure. Let's say that this was the first of many. How about that?
Yes, definitely.
Oh, thank you for listening to us, and thank you, Tyler. To be continued. Till
Always a
next time.
pleasure. All right.
Blessings.
Thank you.